Baby shark.
Ah! In case you're wondering.
Hey guys, welcome to In Case You Were Wondering. As always, I am Chris.
I'm Vicky.
I'm Devery. Hello.
And tonight we have come here to discuss a show that we've recently seen and really enjoy. Straight from Disney Plus, it is the show Echo.
I understand that we are probably a good 2 months late to react to this, but our channel didn't exist.
I mean, better late than never, right?
True. That's definitely true.
And I think that it was one of those shows where I think it kind of snuck under the radar a little bit. I mean, for you guys, had you ever heard of the character Echo before?
I have seen stuff from comic books. And I have known, but when in my brain when I was watching, I'm like, did she have an amputated leg at first? You know, but I actually really liked how, even though the actor that did play her, she was deaf, Native American, Cherokee, or whatever background it was, and an amputee. What is the luck of that, you know? And I thought it was so cool that where they filmed it, all the people who were part of the tribe actually were part of the filming. So I really thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I really thought, from being somebody who's been learning ASL for 2 years, am I good? No. But I like seeing representation, especially somebody who is of that community, because we see a lot in film and media where, as much as I know that these actors are trying their best to portray it in the best way possible, they sometimes don't portray the community in the most positive way. And so I really like that they, you know, had somebody who was really deaf and that like she was able to be that center character who her deafness did not take away from her character as much. It like added to it, so I really thought that was cool.
What about you, Dad?
You know, I think for me, I was familiar with the character of Echo from the comics, but they certainly had done some things to the character. You know, in the comic books, the character of Echo is more of a mimic.
Yeah.
She's a lot like the character Taskmaster. If you guys remember Taskmaster from Black Widow?
Yeah, I do.
That Echo is able to kind of like echo your movements, right? So if she sees it, then she can do it. So her ability is to sort of to mimic body kinesthetic movement, and it makes her a great fighter and somebody that's very difficult to beat. In the show, I found it was interesting what they did. They didn't necessarily lean or tell us that her major ability was that type of kinesthetic mimicry. Instead, they kind of brought in, along with her fighting, one power that they don't talk about with her enough is her intelligence. You guys noticed that her intelligence was really showcased on the show. And then it was her ability to sort of like channel the spirits. That was the Echo part of it that I thought was really amazing. So
I just really liked, I'm sorry, but I like when they add like the family members or the family members that are a little kooky. So like,
yeah.
I know we're gonna get into this like sooner than you guys might have wanted, but like I really liked the character Biscuits because he was funny.
I loved him.
I thought that he, you know, he brought the comedic relief. Like he was the cousin that you could say, okay, I'm gonna meet you in 2 hours, bring your truck, and don't tell anyone you're coming, and they'll just do it. And I was like, okay, Biscuits, you're
I was just really shocked that everyone in the family knew sign. You know, like, oh, yeah, exactly. All the good guys knew sign language. and all the bad guys didn't.
I'm so glad that you picked up on that, and I kind of realized that too, that all of the good characters, even the ones not in the family, could sign, but all of the villains, even Kingpin, played by the great Vincent D'Onofrio,
Yeah.
he had to use some type of prosthetic device that transformed his speech into sign in order to communicate there with Echo. And so I agree. I wanted to just agree with you a little bit about Biscuits, because I did think he was hilarious. There was that scene where he's like, "Not today, not today." I thought that was hilarious. And you think about,
I forgot about that.
I know, right? It has been a little while, but I do feel like the show in general, it was rather dark.
Mm-hmm.
There was, for a Disney Plus show, there was quite a bit of killing in it. There was a lot of violence and darkness. I mean, it was supposed to be a mass shooting at an Indian powwow at the end. And so they don't shy away from those themes at all. And yet, having characters like Biscuits helps to kind of lighten up the tone a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I also really liked that they brought culture and heritage, because we definitely need more representation in media, especially of, I'm going to just say this, if we're using like Native American or First Peoples wrong, please let us know in the comments if you know a proper term. But we definitely need more representation that is positive from the from every community that is not seen as much in media.
So I did read in the credits afterwards where the production team directly thanks the town and the community that was a part of the filming of this. And so I believe they were working really hard to really pay tribute to these people and to their way of life, and to try to make it an accurate reflection about some of the views and ideas of what it might be like living in that community. I thought that was really cool. I wanted to pop over, Amber, to your comment about the sign language. And for a little bit, I thought it was very unlikely that everybody would know how to sign, especially since little Echo left. And because I thought people just learned how to sign because Echo was deaf. And then I realized later on, no, Echo's mother was also deaf. And that made a lot more sense.
Well, there was a scene when she was with her cousin up in the tent, and they were doing like shadow puppets, you know? And then they were still doing sign with the whole family out at the campfire, and I was doing like the curious brain as like I am, and I was doing the, that's interesting they're using sign, but I noticed the mom never really talked. So I was like, there's something going on, either like she grew up not really talking, or it was either the same issue that Echo had. So it was like genetic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I thought like looking at what scenes were definitely powerful for me was when all of a sudden everything would go quiet. Like, we're seeing it from Echo's perspective, where she didn't hear the sounds of the arcade machines or the people getting punched in the face. And she's able, and I think that's like a good thing about her character, is that she's not distracted by anything else. She knows what she can see and what she can feel through vibrations or anything like that. So she doesn't get distracted by the sound of the arcade machine while they were at the roller rink and beating people up. Also, like, where she made that little gun thing with, I think it was like roller blades, like the actual wheels.
Like the roller skates.
Yeah, so, and you could tell that her grandfather really kind of like inspired her to be handy. And so, like, maybe that's what they were talking about, or kind of influencing her with that, like, echo or the mimic thing.
Yeah.
Is that her family, anything that her family does,
she kind of picked
up on, and she was able to learn herself, which I thought was funny. How about you guys?
Like, I think I have to say one of my favorite characters was the grandfather, because she could, like, show up to his shop, you know, the kind of like a thrift store, and be like, hey, my leg broke, and he's like, give me a second. And it's like, you know, like how in like comics or something they do like the splice cut of them like working on the stuff, and I was like, that's insane that you thought of using a bike to use that to supply to make the leg again for her.
I thought it was a really cool thing that her grandfather not only repairs her prosthetic leg, but he upgrades it to make it fashionable, practical, and a reflection of their culture. And without even communicating it, I think the grandmother goes and creates essentially her battle costume. Now, this is sort of like a very constant reoccurring theme in all of these young, I guess they're going to become young adventures at some point, that you get your costume as a part of the show. We saw it in Shang-Chi, where Shang-Chi gets his outfit. We saw it with Kate Bishop becoming the new Hawkeye. And so...
We saw it in Kamala.
We saw it with Kamala Khan, exactly, in Miss Marvel. I will say that as a huge OG fan of Charlie Cox in Daredevil, the fact that episode 1 of the season showed us Daredevil and Echo fighting, and while Daredevil absolutely mops the floor with her, she still is one of the few people that was able to stand with him even for a short amount of time. And I love the idea. It's the whole hear no evil, see no evil, right? Daredevil's blind. Echo is deaf. And I thought it was a really interesting sensory deprivation kind of battle. But I really do like seeing the development of the character of Echo from just simply being like a hired gun lackey that Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio, kept around, almost like he called her his daughter, and yet he was really manipulating her. But seeing her make a choice about who she was going to be and really embracing her community and her heritage and her family, I thought that was a really beautiful kind of story that we got a chance to see.
Oh, sorry. We definitely got to see some scenes that made you understand why she didn't want to see her family, or she, why she, felt uncomfortable. And then you saw like this build of, I think it's her cousin or her uncle, which is like, I forgot the name of him. What's the name? I'm asking the expert here. What's the guy's name?
What did he do?
Oh, he basically was like the side character for her and helping her like be successful in all these missions, even though his roller rink was being like torn apart and he was held hostage. And
I'm not really sure if
I'm
was
gonna
a cousin.
look.
So you're thinking of Henry.
Yes.
And I don't think that Henry specifically was a member of the family. But you know how, we've got people in our lives that we consider family even though we're not related. I think Henry is like that.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed his character because they were able to connect on a very similar level. That they both were kind of born into this really dangerous, really kind of crime-based place. And they're both learning that in order to escape it, they're going to need to band together and love their family. I think Henry has that connection with the family and hasn't had that disconnect like Echo has. And that's a huge build. Like, she goes to him for the beginning, and then she like includes Biscuit, and now we're seeing kind of Bonnie also in there with her expertise as somebody in, I think she's a firefighter or a police officer.
She's a firefighter. Yeah.
A firefighter. And so it's just, I really like the idea of like they're more the younger generation of that family, and they're fighting for that family to kind of get back together. And I think we need to see more families like that because it's like real, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've started to see the inclusion of family as being an important part of stories. I think about when I watched Miss Marvel
Mm-hmm.
with Kamala Khan, played by Iman Vellani, and we see the importance of the family, and even people within her religious group, as a part of her as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're showing us that is an important reflection of the character and what they find to be valuable.
Mm-hmm.
One character that I don't think we can do this review without talking about is the character Kingpin, again played by the great Vincent D'Onofrio.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is a fantastic, brilliant actor, and I was so glad to see him come back here for this show. For you, Amber, what were your thoughts about Kingpin? What did you think?
I just thought it was very interesting how they tried to show the character implemented in the story. And if I'm thinking of the right person, like, I thought it was very interesting how he was kind of like there for her at the same time, but not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be easily like the scene of the ice cream hot dog man was like, hey, you're not telling me what you want. You know, and then he goes, oh, Hannah, let's go back in the car. You know, and then he's gonna go, do, smack, smack.
Now, I loved that scene
because he stood up for her.
He did. He stood up for her. He didn't have to. And there was something that he noticed about her that made her special, even from very early on. I think the Kingpin has always been a very complicated character.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, there was this very protective quality about him, and we saw even in his relationship with his wife Vanessa that he was capable of deep love and connection, and yet he's brutal and dangerous and violent. And as we know, he was the one who killed Echo's father.
Yeah. Wait, didn't he go through a lot of like abuse with his father?
He did.
And everything. So
I think we're getting a lot of shows that kind of deal with generational trauma or generational guilt.
Exactly.
and to learn how to let go.
Yeah, like I really like these. Like, I'm one of those people. I have a psychology degree, so like watching these shows where people are learning how to deal with their trauma from their family or from people a long time ago, it really warms my heart because, you know, more people see that and they want to heal themselves as well. But at the same time, I loved how we're getting a lot of these evil, quote unquote, villains that start off as the good guy.
Yeah.
I think we got introduced to him as being the quote unquote good guy to raise Echo and to be, you know, her father and, you know, protecting her and only her. And then we kind of see that this is all for his plan. Just like...
to use her as a weapon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, just how we see in Miss Marvel, like, with, you know, the character that killed her, like, grandmother's mother. Like, we saw this lady be nice and loving and a mother and sweet. And then all of a sudden we get this huge whiplash moment of, oh, this is the villain. This is her whole intention is to be the most powerful person.
And I'm really glad that you bring that up, because I think Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio, he absolutely makes that twist. That once he realizes that Echo is not coming back, and that she's not just going to do what he wants to anymore, he decides that he's going to get revenge in the worst way possible by essentially killing all the people that Echo ever loved.
Yeah. I thought that was crazy. When like how you notice when he came back, he had like the bandage over his eye and it's all scarred up and everything. I was doing the get away. I'm gonna put the cross to you and try to push you away. But like the big thing I would say, I think is really huge for this story especially, is that you don't really see a lot of people who are either like a coda that grew up with people who are deaf, or people who had to live with them and learn with them as well.
So for people that don't know, what does coda mean?
So coda is, I don't know the definition of each letter, but if your parents were deaf and you're a hearing child, you are considered a coda.
So coda stands for child of deaf adult. That's what it is. So it is really cool. You think about how often, again, stories featuring these types of characters wouldn't be told.
Yeah.
And how often do you think about it? We often talk about people having a disability, right? Well, here is a person who, okay, arguably can't hear, and yet she's very able. And I think that's what's amazing about her. Nobody would look at Daredevil and say, you can't see, you're disabled. No, he's very able. And I think, I know as corny as that sounds, I love the idea of taking somebody with something that should hold them back and yet turning that into a superpower.
I think so. A lot of the deaf community and the hard of hearing community do not see loss of hearing or anything like that as a disability. And I love seeing a lot of these shows not focus on it being a disadvantage, in today's world. Because it's not. In that community, it's seen as almost a superpower, as you could say, or that because it's their way of life. And so seeing somebody who's so confident in themselves, and especially with her really figuring out that her family is with her and stands with her and is willing to fight for her, because all this time Kingpin has been telling her it's only him and her.
Yeah.
And so she's finding this community. I love the line where she realizes that the people who love her learn sign language and try to find out how to communicate with her because she is important in their life. And Kingpin, trying to get her back makes this huge, elaborate, little eye contact to communicate those things. And she's realizing piece by piece that this guy didn't like her or love her as a family member, but as a weapon. And I like that she went through a self-discovery that started with her mom and not getting through, but kind of accepting those memories and those positive moments with her mother, and then fixing things with her grandmother, and then fixing the things with how she saw herself, and kind of rebonding everything. And so I think that's really cool because, we all need a community to get through life, and I'm just glad to see a character like this be portrayed on screen.
I agree. I think that one of the and as we're kind of wrapping things up, I think one of the ideas that is new, it's not comic accurate, but one thing they've added to the character of Echo is this spiritual side of her. I thought that was a really interesting touch. The entire 6 episodes that we see in Echo, we see her using her cleverness. We see her punching and kicking her way through obstacles. And I think we kind of expected that she was going to use that as her major weapon when she went to go defend her community against Kingpin and all of his henchmen under this massacre that they were planning at the powwow. And instead, she summons sort of like the wisdom and the power of her ancestors by attacking Kingpin's spirit. What did you guys think of that moment?
I thought it was interesting because Echo kind of went into him to kind of tell him it's okay, you dealt with this trauma, it's in the past. Try to let it go. You know, because normally when you try to go to like the spiritual side of a character, especially on like a TV show, it tends to be related and connected to the negative side of like a person's like thought process and what they dealt with. Like what I brought up earlier was he had a lot of parental trauma in that he was abused from his father. And like that's the sad truth, is that it happens with a lot of people. And I think it's really important that she didn't want to hurt him like physically, but she wanted to help heal and have him on a better path, you know, so he could think more positive on life.
Considering we've been talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Yeah.
which is the last 2 episodes that we did, she totally did an Aang move at the very end where she used her spirit powers on him, but she found a peaceful solution to a very serious problem. And I really loved that. I thought that was a neat surprise, and it kind of explained and brought the whole thing full circle with her culture and her family and her gifts.
I think it also kind of brings me back to the quote that villains aren't born, they're made. And I think we always kind of forget that like these villains had something break in them that caused them to be bad people or do bad things. And this part where we see him want to grab that hammer and kill his father because of what he was doing to his mother was a very powerful moment, because she's talking through to all that fury and sadness and anger that he carried with him for years. And so when they got out of that, but she goes to his center of his fear and his anger and his sadness, where it all stemmed from. And when they come out of that spiritual moment, he looks at her and he goes, "What did you do to me?" Like he warmed. It was like the Grinch's heart grew 3 times that day, and it was.
That's great.
Hey, I mean,
right.
The reference is a reference.
It's a good reference.
Yeah.
But it's the whole idea that, you know, those things are connected. Those people who do the things that you'd be like, I don't know how the heck they started doing these things. A lot of it stems from what happened to them in the past. And we really see that she did see him as a father figure, and that she values him and everything as a family member. But she wanted to make sure that he was okay and that he was healed from that moment, because, you know, I don't think she even knew about him killing his own father until she got gifted the hammer that happened, you know. So I think like the whole generational, ending that generational trauma and healing being the main focal point of this whole thing is so powerful, especially coming from Marvel, where their whole superpower story a lot of times comes from a parent dying, an uncle dying, someone from the family getting excluded. We're actually seeing like formations of communities and families going back together. So.
Yeah, I really love it.
Yeah.
Talking about the formation of community, guys, if you are enjoying the conversations that we're having in this community, in this podcast, in case you are wondering, hey, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, leave a comment, give us a like, tell us what you think. Are you a fan of Echo? Do you despise the character? What do you think? We just want to know what you guys are thinking about. We definitely appreciate the love. And hey, in case you were wondering, thank you guys for joining us. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm Chris.
I'm Vicky.
And I'm Amber.
Bye.
Adios.